I've been going pretty crazy on the large scale builds recently, so I think it's time to dial it back and spend the same amount of time on some smaller builds to try and make 10 of the most perfect Minecraft builds I possibly can. Alright dude, I have found the perfect spot for build number 1 here, and that spot is going to be like somewhere right here, because we're going to be making a goddamn bridge for number 1, okay? Oh dude, I am so excited to just spend a bunch of time making some smaller builds, like kind of going back to my roots when I used to post builds on Instagram. I'm super excited. All right, so step bloody well 1 here is going to be prepping our landscape, okay? And to do that, we're going to be using the old Axiom mod, of course. So the main thing that I'm looking for is going to be some flat terrain on each side, and we're going to be using the elevation tool set to flatten here, and we're just going to flatten off some landscape. Now, whenever making a bridge, you want to make sure, obviously, both sides are completely level. So I'm just getting it this height here. I'm going to fly over to the other side to find the height of the other side. I mean, you could just look at the Y level on the coordinates, but I'm a lazy prick. There we go. That's the level there. Now I'm going to get our elevation tool out back again, and well, we're going to increase the rate because we're going to be here all bloody day. Even still, okay, man, just make it 500, brother. What am I doing? All right, and then we have a nice bit of terrain to work with. Our 2 sides are created where we're going to start our bridge. So let's get to it. All right, so step 1 here is going to be blocking out my idea with the shape tool in Axiom here. Oh, I apologize for the screaming children in the background, dude. But first, we're going to, so we're going to get the cuboid here. I think I want the width to be 7 by 7, and we're going to paste our first one in here. That is not the block I'm wanting. Let's set that over to stone bricks, I think, actually. We're gonna have to separate the X, Y, and Z here in order to play with the height here and actually get this, you know, to a reasonable height. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna paste a copy so that we can now move this over. It's gonna be exactly in line with the existing one, and we're gonna move it over to the other side right here. Now we can just press enter. I'm also just gonna use the stack tool here to raise these up a little higher just so it's a bit more proportionate. We're gonna stack this all the way across to create our bridge, and next comes the arch. I want a nice arch under here, and we're gonna accomplish that with the path tool here. I think I've probably showcased this a million times now, so I'll just be brief. But actually, before we do that, we need to find the middle point here. We can do that with world edit, select both sides, and then type / center, and then 1, and that'll paste stone. So you can see that's our center there. We actually have a 2-block center. So now with the path tool, I'm going to select this block here. Oh, actually, I forgot. Okay, we're going to change this over to a Bezier curve. All right. Now we're actually going to move this point back down this way above this one and set our 3rd point over here. And now you can see we have this nice curve between the points, and we can play with this one to adjust the shape of the curve there. And I think that is going to be bloody well perfect. We can also choose to use stairs and slabs in this to just smoothen out that curve even more. Now to finish up this arch, the stack tool here is going to be our best friend. We're going to select the whole thing, and then we're just going to stack it all the way to the other side, and bang, that's our arch there. Now, honestly, I feel like an inlay of stone in here is gonna look good. Okay, I've just added that in on every side. I think we need like something in here just to soften this a little bit. Yeah, even just that looks pretty good. Now remember, we're trying to make some absolutely perfect builds here. I want every aspect of this to be absolutely flawless, okay? Well, as flawless as I can get it. So it's these minute little details like this is what I'm actually gonna be paying a lot of attention to here. But so with that arch done, I think I might actually move on to the detailing of the towers here. So something that I really love doing that always looks pretty good to me is having these kind of like pillars like this, you know what I'm saying? Now behind this, I think some stripped spruce logs are gonna go a bloody treat like that. Now because this is a pretty kind of blocky design that I wanna go for the tops here, we can just kind of go with something super simple like this. Maybe even add some spruce fence gates between these here. And then I'm just gonna use the clone tool to add this on every single side and see how it looks so far. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think maybe just some simple lanterns up here would look great. And yeah, honestly, I might just leave it at that for now because, well, I'm kind of too scared to go overboard with it. All right, well, now we of course do need an entrance design. It's also gonna need a staircase up into it, which I think is gonna add a little bit of that depth and should look quite nice. All right, and so I'm thinking integrating an arch kind of into this existing design will look quite nice. So we can get rid of our pillars there. And maybe have something like that. We're gonna have to raise that up 1 block just so it's a bit more proportionate. Now, I accidentally made this freaking tower solid, so I'm gonna have to carve a bloody path through it. Okay, I think this doorway is actually gonna give me a little bit of trouble here. So I think it's time to transition over to a time lapse, and I'm gonna spend a bunch of time trying to figure this out. I tried refining the arch shape quite a bit, but it wasn't until I just tried something completely different until I was finally happy with the look, and that was something more squared to match the shape of the tower. I then added a staircase and some azaleas to fill the blank space, along with changing the path to stone. stone. Now it was on to figuring out the pillars, which took quite a while, but once I was happy, I raised them up along with putting the tower on the other side to get a feel for where the roof should go. I decided on a nice arched roof, going with dark oak wood for the trims, with the rest of the roof out of spruce and slightly lower than the trims for some depth. I ended up adding some stone brick walls into the pillars along with some railings below for detail. The towers were still looking quite bare, so I ended up sprinkling some leaves into the base of the pillar blocks, and then I simply refined the area where the roof meets the towers. Alright, so the bridge is coming along nicely, but we do still have 2 steps to go, with the next one being some texturing, okay? Right now we have, just some very plain kind of textures going throughout this. So the first thing I want to do is grab out the noise painter brush here. And so what I want to basically do is add in some blocks throughout the stone bricks here. So actually, before we start with this, I'm going to go with a tool mask here, and I'm just going to set it to block equals stone brick. So that means we're basically only going to be affecting stone bricks with this brush. And now as for our script brush tool, okay, I'm going to be scattering in, well, we need to add the stone bricks in again. I think some cracked stone bricks will go a bloody treat. And honestly, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to hand add in a bunch more texture, and we'll actually want these cracked stone bricks to be a little bit less than the stone bricks. Also, you can see our pattern down here. It's a little bit big, so I'm actually going to scale this way down to, there. So now we can start painting this on and see how it looks. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good kind of distribution of the cracked stone bricks there. So I'm just going to paint the entirety of the build here. All right, so now I want to hand add in some polished andesite, specifically where these like big, long kind of pillar sections are, as well as like on here. I think it's just a super nice effect to kind of, I don't know, make these pillars feel a little bit more like reinforced or something like that. I don't exactly know how to explain it, but I mean, you'll kind of get the effect once I've added all of these in. So just give me a second here. Okay, there is our polished andesite blocks added in, and you can see it just, I don't even know how to explain. I'm just not going to bother. All right, now the final bit of texture that I want to add in, I'm just going to do by hand, and that is just a little bit of andesite into our stone blocks down here. Okay, so that's the second last step done. Now the final step is going to be just adding a little bit of detail in. So right now the bridge is pretty plain, pretty bare. So let's crank out, of course, you already know it, the barrels and the chests. Okay, they always look great, especially on these like medieval kind of style builds, and bang, there we have it. I think that is our first perfect build there. Honestly, okay, every build, there's no perfect build, okay? You can just probably infinitely keep kind of adding and taking away stuff to, you know, make it as perfect as you can get it. Like I could probably add some wood details along here, maybe some stuff like this with some signs either side, which I did think about, but then I feel like that kind of touching the bottom there just looks a bit weird, and I'd have to just infinitely keep playing around with it until it looks great. But honestly, I think in this instance, less is more, and I think that is looking probably just about as good as I can get it. Alright, next on my list is a Nether portal design. I actually want to revisit a portal design that I've made in the past and just kind of refine it. And so I've chosen this area here. First up, of course, we're going to have to get the script brush tool out here. Set it over to clear bloody foliage. And I'm just going to remove some of these freaking trees, okay? Bang, there we have it. So first things first, of course, we're going to get a Nether portal, but not just any old Nether portal. I want a 5x5 portal. That is not 5x5, my brother. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Alright, so the way that we're going to make this portal is basically kind of just covering every obsidian block with other blocks, and just, I don't really know how to explain it. I'm really not good at explaining, man. Like, you think I'd be better in this day and age. So I think for now, I'm just gonna grab some deep slate brick blocks, just all of the different ones. And we're gonna start by covering up this external, block face, like that. And then we might end up actually kind of smoothing this out a bit more with some stairs. And then towards the top here, we'll add in a little bit of, you know, a slab like that. And now towards the front, I think maybe instead of stone, we could do something a little bit more contrasting, like maybe some diorite. And so now we'll just cover up every single one of these faces of obsidian here with the diorite. Then of course, let's add a little bit of a staircase up, maybe even get something like this. And we could even grab maybe some walls out and add a like a third, not a secondary arch, but a thirdendary arch, okay? Now this is where we run into this problem, but obviously we can just remove these corner blocks because we don't really need them there. And so we can just fill that in with our deep slate, add in our stairs here to get this secondary arch flowing, and then we'll get our third arch down yonder like this. Oh my god, this is gonna be crazy. This might be too crazy. I don't even know. So honestly, it looks like a freaking diode or whatever it's called, where the amethyst stuff spawns. I don't even know. A geode, that's what I'm thinking of. Now to kind of balance out the sides here, I think we need to just expand this. All right, there it is with everything shifted up. That's looking way more proportional. It looks more like a doorway now instead of just like a lump on the ground or something. All right, now because the back is just, well, this, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna duplicate all of this diorite stuff and flip it onto the back. Oh, and now I'm thinking we should change this, because see, we got dark and then white. We could go dark, gray, and then white. And that's gonna look way better. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'll probably do stone or something for this middle block. Let's finish this off with a time lapse. All right, so after adding in the middle layer of stone and stone bricks, I honestly did not think it looked like a perfect build. So I ended up moving it off to the side, and I ended up changing this portal more into another one I'd built years ago, which is more of a Stargate portal type of build. I honestly didn't really intend to completely change it, and it was around this point here that I just decided to go for it because I was having trouble getting the previous design looking good. But in the end here, I think this portal ended up looking as close to perfect as I could get it. All right, now to finish this build off, I really think just some surrounding kind of landscape is going to, you know, be a pretty big benefit here. So I've just got our tool mask set up once again, just replacing the grass blocks around here. And then because right now this just looks like a blob of crap, to make it look more like it's kind of spreading into the world, we're just gonna kind of feather the edges here. Now the final step is going to be placing in our warped roots, nether sprouts. Honestly, I had no idea that's what it was called. Our warped fungus, which, oh my God, looks so good with the 3D crops resource pack, man. Holy crap. And then finally our twisting vines, which I think will look great keeping it closer to the portal here. And I will use string to, you know, stop that from continuously freaking growing out of proportion. All right, and then we have it, dude. You know, it's a bit more of a hybrid between those two builds that I'd made years ago. And honestly, I think it turned out pretty freaking good, man. I'm happy to call that build as perfect as I can get it. Let's move on to the third build. All right, so next up we have a mine entrance, and I'm gonna combine a lot of my favorite elements for mine entrances into one to make the perfect one, okay? So once again, I'm gonna clear a bunch of these trees away. So I think right here is gonna be the perfect spot. What I also wanna do is paint this cliffside with actually a couple different blocks here. So I wanna get, well, we've already got andesite, stone, and then the last one I want to get in there is some stone bricks. Actually, before that, I do kind of want to make this area a little less of a slope and more of like a sheer drop off, kind of like this area. So I'm actually going to do that with the flatten tool here, and I'm just going to simply kind of, you know, get rid of that there. So it's more, you know, like that. That's pretty much perfect. All right, so that's looking pretty perfect there. Now we're going to use that painter tool and just, okay, that's not it. Noise painter, there we go. And I just want to add this into like this whole kind of cliff face there. That's pretty much perfect, I think. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to cut out a big hole right in the middle. So we could actually do this with the melt tool. And so I want to get a sphere about that size and just start pretty much just clicking, and we're just going to continuously click. So that's our rough hole there. I'm also going to use the smooth tool to just smoothen this out. Kind of self-explanatory. Okay, never mind. We're not doing that. All right, now what I want to do is I want to have the top area here kind of stick out a little bit, and we're going to make that look super nice by adding in a bunch of stairs and slabs and stuff to this. So yeah, a lot of this is going to be kind of getting the landscaping right. So I might honestly just get all of this done as a bit of a time lapse just because I feel like it's going to be a bit more entertaining. So let's get to it. Okay, so I continued working on the shape of the entrance, getting it nice and circular, and once I was happy, I built up the staircase leading up. I also love the idea of these inset pillars essentially bracing against the cave, but man, I spent a long time trying to get some support design in the corner until just resorting to the old faithful here. I then started on adding plenty of details like chests, barrels, and leaves, along with decorating the interior with plenty of furnaces, minecarts, and more bracing support pillars. Okay, I've been pretty much flying around this for like 10 minutes now, just trying to think of what else to add, so I think I've hit the point where I've pretty much gotten this as perfect as I can get it. I mean, even these like minecart details I've been trying to like, you know, angle to get them looking perfect, but for some reason they keep resetting like just straight on. Like this one was nice and perfectly angled like this, or like that, yeah. But for some reason they just keep resetting straight, so I give up, man. Yeah, I think the last thing to do here that we definitely need is a little bit of grass. So a nice handy tip, if you have world edit, go ahead and select your entire region here. So I'm just gonna select down there and up here. And now we can just type // flora, and that's just gonna add in a bunch of different, you know, kind of flora items around the place. And there we have it. That's a nice, quick, and easy way to get you know, the surrounding area looking nice and natural. And I think that is pretty much just about as perfect of a mine entrance as I can bloody well get. All right, for build number 4, I've just come down here a ways to, well, another village. And this next build is actually going to be a fishing dock. So I found this perfect area to work with here. And we may as well just connect this up to this village. And so when it comes to fishing docks, I usually try and elevate these a little bit above the water just to give yourself a little bit more room to work with. So I might end up, you know, probably making this one just one layer above the water here. That way you can just kind of add like these steps down into the water like that if you want to have, you know, little boat docking areas or something, just for a little bit more kind of verticality, I guess. Another thing as well with docks is it's always a good idea to add these kind of support pillars along the sides. Just helps it be a little bit more believable. And honestly, I think I might go pretty big with this one. Usually with my docks, I'll kind of keep it, maybe it'll extend out to here. I'll add a house and like a dock or something onto the side of it. But I might go crazy with this one and just, I don't even know how big I'm gonna go with it. I reckon I might just make this into like maybe a little bit of a mini fishing dock village. I don't even know. So to get the ideas flowing, I'm gonna listen to some bloody tunes and get this one done as another time lapse. So let's get to it. All right, so I did end up going pretty overboard here and made this thing at a pretty massive scale, which did mean it ended up taking a lot more time than intended, but I did still make sure everything was built as good as I could get it. So after getting the main docks and a farm design built, I moved over to some house designs, keeping it pretty simple, making sure to use different wood types from the surrounding docks so they stand out a little better. And after pasting a bunch of those around, I worked on a fishing gazebo type of thing, and once that was finished, I continued adding more random builds around along with plenty of detailing blocks. Yeah, so definitely pretty overboard here. Did not need to make it this big. I probably shouldn't have made it this big so that I could spend a lot more time focusing on the smaller details. I've kind of learned my lesson. I'm gonna keep each build a little bit, well, smaller than this. But yeah, let's move on to the next build. Okay, well, it's safe to say I actually haven't learnt my lesson because, well, this next build was just gonna be a pretty simple tower, okay? But I've already kind of made a tower over here. So I've just completely changed my mind, and what I'm gonna make is a completely self-sustained modern mansion on its own little grassy island. Yeah, this thing's gonna be pretty extravagant. I'm expecting it to probably take twice as long as this little village I just built. I don't know what's wrong with me. I really just want to make that. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna get the entire thing done as a bit of a time lapse. So let's get to it. All right, starting out, I first used the elevation tool to essentially create myself an island here that I shaped to my liking. The next course of action was to begin constructing the giant, sprawling, modern-style mansion I wanted smack bang in the middle of this island. Sorry for my kid. After adding heaps of different shapes around this building, I moved on to the right side, adding more here to balance everything out. As for the roof, I didn't want it to be plain, so I added a couple fields of grass and also some solar panels. At this point, I needed to expand the island a bit as the house was larger than expected. I also added a pool, garden, and reshaped the front here, adding a dock that'd hold the boat. Now, I have quite literally never attempted making a modern style boat like this in my life, so cut me some slack, but I tried my bloody best here. I did have to do quite a bit of redesigning, but in the end, I think it turned out pretty good. Now, with pretty much everything built, it was now time to once again reposition the mansion and begin adding some more interesting terrain around the place in order to add some elevation to the forest I then planted. I also began adding some smaller details throughout the place, like some lounge chairs with umbrellas and various other things. I'd found an image online that used a helipad, so I felt integrating one to my island would work pretty well too. All right, and there is the modern style mansion island thing all done. Dude, out of all of this, I think I'm most proud of this little boat that I made here. I have never attempted to make a modern boat in my life, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. Also, I haven't made too many modern mansions, but I am pretty proud of this one too. Yeah, I've definitely learnt my lesson. These next 5 builds are going to be a lot smaller in scale with a lot more detail, so let's get over to build number 6. Okay, so for this next build, I want to make an enchanting gazebo, okay? The first things first, we're gonna have to, of course, clear off some bloody terrain here. Get rid of all the trees. Come on, mate. Then, of course, once again, we're gonna get out the old flatten tool, and I'm just gonna get myself a nice good bit of land situated here, because I want this thing to be actually pretty big, okay? I've got a specific style in mind that I really do like doing. Well, I've actually only done it once, so I want to try it again. The easiest way to get this one built is going to be with the shape tool here. Firstly, let's place down this right here. We also need to figure out what blocks we want to use. I feel like quartz and like blackstone is gonna look really cool, like a royal kind of themed one. So we're actually gonna change this over to a cylinder. Now, do I want it that big? Because that is pretty big. Maybe let's go down to 13 by 13, but I think that's a bit more modest. So let's paste that in. We're actually gonna paste a copy. Then what we're gonna do, we're gonna move this up to about there, paste another copy, and then we're gonna move this up again. I'm gonna change it to a sphere. Change the diameter Y to 13 as well. Let's actually move that up even further, and I'm gonna change this over to our blackstone block. Now, this may not be making any sense at all at the moment, but it will soon, don't you worry. Now, what I'm gonna do is delete the bottom half of this entire sphere thing that we've just pasted in. So delete that. Then we're gonna get the move tool and move the rest of this down on top of here to create our kind of dome shape roof that I'm looking for. And that is pretty much perfect, although we do have to move this whole thing down a little ways. Probably to about there for now, I'm thinking. All right, and my kids started being even more noisy at this point, so I transitioned over to a time lapse here, first fixing up the pillar situation and then beginning on figuring out how to implement the actual enchanting table. I ended up insetting it into the ground slightly and continued playing around with it for a bit. Finishing up the enchanting section, I felt the exterior could use slightly more detail, so I added a whole bunch of azaleas around the sides and crammed the rest of the sides full of pot plants. All right, you gotta hear this is the cutest thing that Liam started doing. Are you ready? Are you ready for bed? Are you sure? All right, let's get you off to bed then. All right, Liam is now happy in bed, snoozing away. Back to the old enchanting area here. I think this might be the most perfect build I've made so far in all of these. I don't know what it is about it. It's just so simplistic, and it has just like the perfect amount of details, I think. I don't know. I really love these pot plants surrounding the area. It just gives it a bit of color as well. In the enchanting area itself, I don't know, honestly, I feel like there's too many small details in here. Maybe we might even do some live changing here. Let's honestly just make 2 of these corners completely full. Another 2 can have just some chests. We might even do something like this just to make it a little bit more symmetrical. Yeah, honestly, just that. I think that looks miles better, honestly. And to get our lighting back in, we could just have a big stinking chain hanging from the top into a lantern like that. Oh, I think that looks way better, actually. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was it better before or after? Okay. Let's move on to build number bloody 7. All right, next up on my list is a bit of an underground railway. I have built 1 or 2 of these before, but I really just want to perfect it, I guess. And you'll see what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, you'll see, okay? So once again, we're gonna clear out some bloody well foliage over here because we need a nice kind of stretch of flat land. Speaking of flat land, flatten tool, bloody perfect, bloody beauty. Get that going. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is kind of just figure out the size of this hole. So basically the idea is that we have, an underground railway system, and this is just like a stretch of it that is gonna be open to the wide world around here, and I think it's gonna look really cool. So let's figure out the size here, and then we can just delete that whole section like that. And that gives us this opening. May even go 1 or 2 blocks deeper. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just make a little bit of an archway here that the railway would theoretically continue going along. What I will also do is, with world edit here, I'll just do the / walls command and set this all to stone, just so we have a nice, just everything set to stone. And that did just remove the arch that I've built, but that's okay. We'll just bloody do it. So with this arch, I do want to have it nice and smooth as well. So we'll probably do something like, maybe not that, maybe that. Yeah, okay, I actually like that quite a bit. There, so something like that. It just kind of gives a little bit of an impression like the tunnel does continue there. And then what we can do is just copy this entire thing, rotate it, and paste it over here like so. Oh, I'm gonna have to fix it up a bit. God damn it. Okay, so there is our opening. Now, all that's pretty much left to do is decorate the hell out of this bad boy. So the first thing that I think is gonna look really good is having a bunch of pillars that kind of come out and just add a little bit of depth throughout the build. Now, what we can do is clone this, probably add like a gap of 3 between each of these and just kind of pray that it lines up. So there we go, there's our pillars. What I'm gonna do now is clone these and put them on the opposite side. Bang. Now, I do feel like that these are sticking out a little bit too much, so I'm actually gonna put them down like that. That is looking way better. Next up, we need a bloody railway system in here, so let's place down a couple of rails. I feel like 1 is just too small, so I usually, I feel like 2 separate tracks will look good. Stack this all the way down to the end, and we'll do the same on this side too. And now pretty much the task is going to be just turning this into like a ruined, overgrown kind of tunnel. So right now it's basically pristine. So what I'm gonna do, add leaves, add trees, add vines, cracks in the wall, water, everything like that. So let's get to it. All right, getting to our ruined detail, I first added some leaves and then a bit of a spout of water coming from the wall and leading down to a bit of a stream. I added a second one of those on the opposite side and went back to adding leaves along with some patches of grass throughout the ground. I got some cracks on the ground too, just using stair blocks along with getting the other wall completely decorated. I then turned my attention to the top portion of the build, getting plenty more leaves added in, dangling down over the top, along with getting a dense forest planted. Alright, and there is the completed Overgrown railway. Turned out pretty freaking sweet in my opinion. I think my favorite detail here is these little cracks with the water spreading throughout. Like, it's just so much fun making these. I don't know why, and it looks so awesome too. It's just like such like small detail. But yeah, overall, dude, I think this thing turned out pretty freaking sweet. Alright, next in line, I had the idea to create a sort of giant jungle wall with an opening in the water. This is also based on a build I created years ago that I wanted to do differently, like I added grass and trees on top of the wall and a more unique texturing pattern. Because we do have such a big surface area, we can texture it with a bit of a larger scale pattern, which I think turned out great. I added some mossy blocks to the texture too, and then began adding plenty of leaves around the place, not going too overboard as I didn't want it to be completely overgrown, sort of like it occasionally gets maintained, I guess. Alright dude, this one was heaps of fun. I think it turned out really freaking cool as well. It's just such a unique like build idea. I feel like changing the sun as well would be beneficial here. Yeah, that looks a bit nicer with like the shadows going over it and stuff and in the actual sun. And I really love the addition of the boat as well. It just kind of helps you get a sense of scale of how big this wall actually is. And yeah, super happy with how this one turned out. Okay, I have made a lot of barns in the past, but there's always just been something about them that I've just not ended up liking in the end. So I think it's time to try and create the absolute perfect one, okay? Yeah, that's what I think. I think I'm gonna go with the classic kind of red wood, probably use mangrove with diorite and like a deep slate roof. I think it's gonna turn out great. And once again, we're gonna get this one done as a time lapse, so let's get to it. All right, if it ends up looking like I built this whole thing pretty quick and with no mistakes, it's because I already built it, but forgot to hit record with the replay mod. So like I said previously, I really wanted to make this the most perfect barn I've ever built, but there was one thing I hadn't solved when I first built this without recording, and that's the window above the door. Now, I've been seeing a lot of these layered window designs, and I wanted to try one here, and after a lot of experimenting, I ended up with this one, which I was super proud of. After that, I got the rest of the walls and windows sorted, and it was then onto the interior, of which I filled out the big main barn with some animal pens. As for the building adjoined on the side, I felt having this as a storage area would work pretty well. Alright dude, I am happy to call that probably the best barn I have ever made in my life. I think this thing turned out absolutely perfect, especially this window. I'm glad I spent a bunch of time on this because I think it ended up pretty cool. It kind of gives the effect that it's like two individual windows. Now, a lot of the time with these window designs, people will do like a kind of back thing like that to kind of make it look like it's, you know, like that, which does look great from this angle down here. But once you kind of get in line with it, it kind of, you know, I mean, we could change that over to trap doors, but honestly, I like the look of that as it is. And it only takes up 2 layers as well, which I think is absolutely perfect. Yeah, dude, I am super happy with this barn. It is rather simplistic, but I think that's just the way to go for barns, honestly. All right, now for this final build, I think I want to just try and make a survival base, okay? I think like a nice like wooden style platform kind of base. I mean, you'll see what I mean in the end, but I want to add like heaps of farms and just like a bunch of different, you know, stuff. I'm gonna get this area nice and flattened. And I think once again, I'm probably just gonna get this one done as a time lapse just so I can like focus up and try and make it as good as I possibly bloody can. So let's get to it. All right, so the first course of action was to get the pillars and layout of the base figured out, of which I just kind of went freestyle with it and figured it out as I went. I ended up deciding on making the back tallest section here into a proper base, so I started adding in the walls along with the roof on top, adding a dormer in the middle to break up the boringness. Right at the front of the base, I wanted to have some farms, so I went with a sugarcane one and some crop fields on the right. On the first floor of the base, I ended up settling on getting storage, smelting, and crafting down here as well as enchanting. On the top floor, I added the bedroom, brewing, and a bit of a map room on the far right. All right, there is the 10th and final build all done, the survival base. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I always love making these platform style bases. I don't know what it is about it. They're just, I don't know. It's like a little compound. I think the farms at the front are a nice touch as well. It just adds some color into the base. Down here, I did add these little island things in just because I felt it was a bit, you know, open, and that just helps kind of fill the space in. And here's our interior down here. Turned out pretty freaking sweet. And then upstairs as well, we just got our bedroom, brewing, and then our little map room over here too. And yeah, so that's just about going to do it for my 10 perfect builds. Again, these are as perfect as I can get them. I'm not claiming them to be like absolutely perfect, just as good as I can get them, okay? And yeah, dude, if you want to download this world with all 10 builds with coordinates linked to each and every one, be sure to check out my Patreon as the download will be up over there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.